What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. Week 16 has begun. There's only 3 weeks of football left, regular season football left. It's kind of crazy. Jaguars, our Jacksonville Jaguars, take down the New York Football Jets 19-3. Joining me to break down what is not just a victory for the Jaguars, but a victory for a team in the natty. John Breech and Ryan Wilson. What's up, fellas?
Breech, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm wearing also my homemade Bengals jersey. Got a B on my shirt because I'm joining Team Bengals, despite the fact that you told one of the most terriblest, worstest jokes I've ever heard moments before coming on this podcast. And I am more angry at you than I've ever been at Will Brinson about any of the things he's done in our 15 years together.
Wow. That is an
unhealthy amount of hate.
Level of anger. By the way, we should point out, Breech, before you dive in and point out, this is how awesome Joe Burrow is. Like, we've spent 5 years making fun of the Bengals and like enjoying their misery, and I love the Bengals because of Joe Burrow.
And Wilson, noted Steelers homer, loves the Bengals, and we had some cats helping cats tonight. That's what we want to see. Big cats helping cats. Jacksonville wins. Means the Bengals have clinched a playoff berth, in case anyone is wondering why I'm wearing the Bengals coat. No Super Bowl hangover for the Bengals, only for the Rams. You guys are going to have to deal with this for at least wild card weekend, probably for another Super Bowl run, so get used to it. But let's digress because I don't want to not talk about Jacksonville, who looks unstoppable right
now. Jacksonville wins, as I mentioned, 19-3 over the Jets. The Jaguars move to 7-8. The Jets fall to 7-8. It is, I mean, I don't know if the Jaguars look unstoppable, but and I'm not going to do the peacocking thing here on Trevor Lawrence because you've already made a culpa sufficiently, in my opinion, Wilson.
Well, first of all, let's be honest. I question whether we should be concerned about Trevor Lawrence. That's not an outrageous thing to say, number one. Number two, he was the first overall pick. He's playing like the first overall pick. I think that's about where we should be.
Okay, I can peacock if you want me to. I was trying to.
Number three, I don't think Trevor Lawrence is what you need to be peacocking, or there's no peacocking there. Brinson, if you want to peacock about something, you need to peacock to last August when you sat on this podcast and tried to convince everyone that Jacksonville was going to win the division title, and we laughed in your face. And now here we are, 2 weeks away from it happening. You should be laughing in our face.
Let's get the division win first before I peacock about that. I will definitely peacock about that if it happens. I'll be thrilled for all my many relatives in Jacksonville, my many friends in Jacksonville, #Duval, who, would be. I don't know. Again, I'm not trying to. My point was, Wilson, I'm not going to like beat this over the head because it was fair to. There were plenty of people who questioned Trevor Lawrence after his first season. My larger point is that I think Trevor Lawrence has looked, not that he was like insanely awesome on Thursday night, but he has looked over the last 6 weeks or so like he's coming on strong. I heard Kirk Herbstreit and Al Michaels recall a conversation with Doug Peterson leading up to this game in which Doug Peterson said that as a head coach in the NFL, his number one favorite win of all time is winning the Super Bowl, as one would imagine. His number two favorite win of all time was winning the NFC Championship game. And his third favorite win as a head coach, as an NFL head coach ever,
was winning the divisional playoff game.
No, was beating the Cowboys last week. And I think like there's something that the Jags are like the AFC Lions, man. They are kind of fun. And you kind of want to root for them, and they're not this like obnoxious, sloppy underdog. They're sort of like a frisky cat, just like the Lions. And I mean, the Jets stink. We'll get to them in a minute. But man, I think the Jaguars, are. What do you think the odds are? I haven't looked right now. What do you think the odds are for the division? I would think even with the Titans playing Houston, that. Man, I mean, Ryan Tannehill likely
they're favored.
Have to be like minus 135, 130.
Tannehill's done. They've got to be favored, even though they're
coming into this game. Stephen O, our buddy at Sportsline, had the simulations at the Jaguars. So this is before the Tannehill news, winning the division at 39%. So that is probably higher before this game once the Tannehill news broke, and it's going to be higher now. So it might be closer to 50%. I can't imagine it's over 50. Maybe it is, though, if you have to roll with Malik Willis. But winning football games doesn't hurt your cause down the stretch. And I actually do agree. I like this Jaguars team a lot. It's hard not to like Doug Peterson. Although, ironically, you hated the fact that Debo used to only refer to Doug as Doug.
I did.
And now you're okay with calling him Doug, I think.
I think that it's sort of like a Stockholm syndrome thing where I call him Doug now too because we just did it so much. But yeah,
I feel like if there was a situation where you were being held hostage, your captors would get reverse Stockholm syndrome by hanging out and talking to you and trying to break you. Like they'd be like, okay, let's do whatever Brinson wants to do, pull for NC State. And I think you're capable of getting Stockholm syndrome, is what I'm saying. By the way, I have a nickname for Trevor Lawrence too.
That's fair. It took me a second to get that, but I think you're fair.
What is does Trevor Lawrence have a nickname? Because you hate it when I called Christian McCaffrey C-Mac. I got to start doing that again.
Let me. A lot of people call him T-Law. I don't love T-Law.
Oh, that's what I call him. I didn't know if I made it up if I heard that somewhere.
There is another one, but I'm not sure where it stems from. And I don't.
Girl from TikTok. That's also a good one.
Sunshine. They call him Sunshine.
I'll check and make sure that it's.
Sunshine's a good one. I like that. Is that a real thing, or you made that up, Breech?
No, I think that's one of them.
That's his nickname. Okay, I didn't know if I thought it was I was making sure it wasn't derogatory for any reason. That's what.
I think it means like a pretty little girl.
It's from Remember the Titans. The guy with long hair.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, so NC State fans all call him Sunshine. I was like, I thought I didn't. We don't like.
I take that as a compliment. I would love for someone to call me Sunshine
or something. But yeah, he looks.
Brinson's nickname is Moonshine.
I'll take it. Actually, my nickname is Big Oil. Somehow
that was a drinking joke.
No one calls you that.
that is a lot of people call me Big Oil.
We call you Butt Shine, not Moonshine. Moonshine to your face, Butt Shine behind your back.
God Almighty, Butt Shine.
Oh my God!
I live with an 11-year-old.
But it is remarkable what you talk about. The Jaguars, who for a very long period of time have just been a miserable franchise. And yes, Trevor Lawrence was there last year, but again, I give him a red shirt. Urban Meyer, all of that. When you have a competent head coach and you have a franchise quarterback, or in case of the Bengals, and maybe not even a competent head coach, but just a franchise quarterback.
Well, coach that gets out of the way, not one that actively sabotages the organization.
Right. It's just crazy how it changes your entire perception of a franchise. Like the Bengals were terrible for a long time. They had the nice Carson Palmer stretch, Andy Dalton.
Well, they were actually really good under Marvin Lewis. They just couldn't win the playoff game.
I'm just saying that, it's like you have Joe Burrow or Trevor Lawrence, and you don't feel invincible, but you feel you're like there's no telling what we could pull off. If you told me the Jaguars and Bengals both won a Super Bowl in the next 5 to 10 years, I would not be surprised by that.
Jaguars, Bengals, AFC title game.
I have some really weird Jaguars Super Bowl bets this year. Jaguars Packers 3,850 to 1.
Yeah, you lost that money.
It's not dead yet, buddy.
Brinson, it's.
I'll tell you what. If we go to Arizona and it's Jaguars Packers in the Super Bowl, I will buy y'all's drinks for an evening.
Oh, you heard it. Everybody heard that. Everybody heard that here.
Really going on a limb on that one.
You know what's crazy is that
$5 to win $20,000. I mean, come on.
This game was supposed to be kind of a de facto playoff game where the loser was going to be in a lot of trouble. And the fact that the Jets went out there and just laid an egg. I mean, it wasn't Jacksonville looked great, but it's.
But Breech, let me ask you this: why was the line Jets -2.5 to start? That's my first question.
I'm guessing because Jacksonville had lost 12 straight games in colder weather. And
okay, I mean, I understand that.
Florida team coming up north, rainy, 45 degrees.
I think I picked the Jets.
Let me ask you this other question then: why? You mentioned that the Jets laid an egg. Why does that surprise you based on what we've seen from the second-year quarterback?
Well, I think that I expected the Jets defense to play better.
That's fair. Now, the defense actually played poorly, but I would quickly push back on you can't expect the defense to dominate each and every week, and this is just the week that they were off. Okay.
Well, right, but I also thought the Jets would put up more than 66 yards in the first half. I think that's laying an egg, even with Zach Wilson. Say 120, 130, 140 would have been not horrible. 66 yards. I cannot believe they didn't bench Zach Wilson at halftime.
I can't either.
Why?
All right, let's talk Jets. Was Joe Flacco was available to play?
I think at that point it didn't matter. I think this is my guess. I have no idea because as we were doing this podcast, Robert Saleh is talking right now. But my guess is that the offensive line was actually absolutely not great for Zach Wilson. There are a lot of reasons to be upset with Zach Wilson, but he really had not a lot of time. And even when he had time, he made some pretty poor decisions. The running game couldn't get going. Zach Wilson had very little time to throw the ball. And I'm guessing Saleh and LaFleur's thinking was, if we put Joe Flacco back there, we may have to take him off in several body bags because he's going to come apart. Let's put Strebler in there, who's basically a running back. And by far,
I mean, that's like, but by the way,
it worked.
Well, no, but okay. I think the whole Strebler thing is like, first of all, you can't just throw out Strebler and act like the entire world. Like, I got 50 texts like, who is Strebler and what is he doing on the football field? Did you know Strebler before? I knew he got called up this afternoon, but I didn't know anything about him. Some Jets fans told me some Jets guys I know told me he was like East Coast Taysom Hill.
Yeah, he played in Arizona for a while. I think he played a little bit for Arizona. He was a CFL guy. I had to look that up when he came in.
He won the Grey Cup. Did you guys see the picture I tweeted out? He's shirtless in a fur coat with a cowboy hat.
Yeah, I was going to respond back. How does this tell me everything I need to know about Chris Strebler? Because all it tells me is that he's in pretty good shape and he gets pretty strong to hold that trophy.
Christopher L. Strebler, born January 6, 1995, is an American football quarterback for the New York Jets of the National Football League, NFL. He played college football in Minnesota and South Dakota. Strebler previously played 2 seasons as a backup quarterback for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers of the Canadian Football League. In 2019, Strebler was on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers when they won the 107th Grey Cup championship by defeating the Hamilton Tiger Cats 33-12 at McMahon Stadium in Calgary, Alberta.
Here's the twist. I actually already knew all that because I remember Chris Strebler from when he had to start for the Cardinals against the Rams in the 2020 season finale with the winning team, I believe, making the playoffs in that game. And so that was a gigantic game. Kyler Murray got hurt. And everybody's like, wait, the Cardinals are starting who? What now? What's going on? And Jared Goff was also hurt. So it was Chris Strebler versus John Wolford to go to the playoffs.
John Wolford's had some of the worst counterpart starts in NFL history, I feel like.
God, I do not remember. Are you sure Strebler started?
Yeah,
I'm 99% sure he started.
Yeah, if you look at his stats, which
not 100%, only 99.
He's threw a handful of passes that season.
No, I'm not saying he didn't play. I'm just saying I don't remember him.
Well, you didn't remember him at all, so you probably wouldn't remember him.
Or he went in for Kyler. Kyler got hurt, and I just remember Kyler Murray being injured. I couldn't remember.
Oh, the Cards were huge faves, and Kyler got hurt. Maybe
that sounds probably right, but maybe not.
I mean, I'm okay not remembering Chris Strebler. I can look at it.
Yeah, but my point is that he's a running back, and that's probably why he played over Joe Flacco because the offensive line wasn't doing well, and he actually did well as a running back, did less well as a passer, but on par with or perhaps even exceeding what Zach Wilson was able to do over the first nearly 3 quarters, which was hard to watch.
Okay, I tweeted something like sort of like this, but it's like Joe Flacco, Mike White, and Chris Strebler have been immediate upgrades over Zach Wilson. How far down the list of quarterbacks do you think we'd have to go?
Well, Chris Strebler's pretty far down the list, isn't he?
That's what I'm saying, man. Like how far? Like current day David Carr, Jamarcus Russell, current day Joe Namath. Like how far down the list do you have to go before you find somebody where you're like, okay, that guy's not going to be an upgrade over Zach Wilson? And I'm not, I do this so often, you're going to kill me for it. I'm not going to defend Zach Wilson here.
Go for it.
It is still his second year in the NFL. He has not had good circumstances surrounding him.
This team is pretty freaking good.
Okay. I'm just saying that, like, I think it is probably unfair to just write off Zach Wilson, but it is also likely that he is done with the Jets.
Breech is right.
On a throne of lies.
Yeah, amen to that.
I'm not. It's like when I say that Cliff Kingsbury won't be fired. I'm not defending Cliff Kingsbury. I'm just saying that you at least have to take. We can't just be like, well,
like I told you,
that's it for Zach Wilson.
Like Rick Spielman said with the First Pick podcast, which you didn't promote this time. I didn't say anything about it. You still missed the read. He said 3 years is what you give a first-round quarterback. He was talking specifically about Christian Ponder, which obviously didn't work out. So he still thinks that, you deserve another year with Zach Wilson. But I'll say this, our buddy Jason Lock-on-4, who also now writes sort of a notes column, insider notes column for the Washington Post, he tweeted this out during the game. He said, we want Flacco chants were happening during the game. 7-7, 7-7, which is what the Jets were before this game, or not. Woody Johnson ain't going to be happy, and he didn't hire this coach. All ain't well in Florham Park.
That's a good point. Woody was off doing something else.
He was an ambassador.
But there's just so much animosity. Every time Zach Wilson threw an incomplete pass, he got booed. The fans hate him. And that whether you like it or not, that's got to play a small part in this decision where he just needs a change of scenery. It is not working out for him there. He has not been a good quarterback.
It also plays a huge part in like you being the guy who's trying to play quarterback, and every time you throw an incompletion, you're getting mercilessly booed by the fans in your home stadium. Like that makes it difficult to play quarterback.
Well, it does when Mike White, 5th-round pick, comes in and deals. And it does when you come in and throw the type of interceptions you threw last week in that loss against the Lions.
I am not saying I didn't think Zach Wilson was going to be good when he came out of college. So I'm not trying to cape up for him here. I'm just saying that, and look, part of it, a lot of this is his own fault because he threw his defense under the bus to the point where Garrett Wilson there's multiple headlines out there about Garrett Wilson, a rookie wide receiver, ripping him to shreds. For not being a good teammate and for not, like a bunch of different stuff. The entire team wore Mike White t-shirts the first time that the Jets finally started Mike White. And there's just a lot of different stuff. Like, this is a really difficult job, quarterback of the New York Jets. Quarterback of the New York Giants, tough too, man. Like, this is not the same as being the quarterback of the Carolina Panthers or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Baker Mayfield would like a word.
It just feels like every Jets player, their body language completely changes when Zach Wilson's out there like, there's no way we're winning. I don't even know what we're doing out here.
Well, it's funny, Breech. When Streveler came in, the offense is suddenly pepped up. It felt like the offensive line was blocking harder. I don't know if that was perception or otherwise, but it looked like a completely different team. Now, maybe because they were running the ball more than throwing the ball, but that is noteworthy, and that's why I made a note of it, I guess. And it is on many levels troubling.
And then even when Trevor was in there, though, the whole Jets offensive staff, like they were getting plays in slow. This team was only down 2 scores. I mean, they lost by 2 scores, so they were still in it the whole time. You scored 1 touchdown.
When it was 16-3, what did the score feel like, though?
I mean, it felt like it was 51-0, but the Jets weren't coaching. They were coaching like it was 51-0. Like, let's just run the clock and get out of here.
Right.
Let's take the L, even though our playoff hopes are essentially on the line. It was a horribly coached game. The quarterback looked horrible. Everything about the Jets was horrible, except for their defense played okay in spurts. But what can you do when you're on the field for nearly 40 minutes? Or 35 minutes. Your defense is going to struggle if they're on the field for 35 minutes in most cases.
Todd Furman actually tweeted this out. And the Jets defense didn't play as well as they usually played, but still they only gave up 2 touchdowns, I believe. And Todd Furman tweeted out, Jets defense have allowed 2 touchdowns in the last 2 games, and they're 0-2.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Jets defense has been awesome. It's even if the Jets don't make the playoffs,
they're not going to make the playoffs.
I agree. You can still look at the season and say,
there's a path.
No, I'm saying you can look at the season and say, this has been a very good season for the Jets.
I think, again, you're on the wrong side of the conversation that Breech and I are often on when it comes to what constitutes a successful season.
I think the Jets, if the Jets finish 9-8 or 8-9,
they're not going to finish 9-8. Go ahead.
Probably not. They got 2 games left. This has been the Jets look like they are on the path that they wanted to be on.
But they don't have a quarterback.
Well, Brinson, here's the crazy thing about, because I half agree with what you're saying. So they're 7-8 right now. Let's say they go 1-1 and finish 8-9. If you would have told a Jets fan in August that this team was going to finish 8-9, but not told them anything else,
they'd sign in blood for it.
They absolutely
would. Like, whose blood do you want? Let me sign for that.
But if you tell a Jets fan on December
7-3 or 6-3
on December 1st, when they're 7-3, that this team's going to finish 8-9, they're going to cut your ears off and stop listening to everything you're saying because it's ridiculous.
Well,
So,
but that goes. I mean, but that goes back to my point. Like the Vikings, for instance, and Lord knows we don't need to talk about the Vikings on this podcast anymore.
Oh God!
If you told a Vikings fan, hey, you're going to go, and they're 11-3 right now. You're going to go 13-4. And lose a tough playoff game to the 49ers, a hard-fought playoff game in the first round of the 49ers, or a hard-fought, like whatever it is, they'd be like, look, you give me 13-4. Anybody signing for 13-4, right? With the exception of maybe like the Chiefs or whoever.
But I don't think they're signing for first round playoff loss.
The point being is that you wouldn't look at it and be like, they went 13-4 and they lost in the first round of the playoffs. What a terrible season.
No, it's a disappointing season.
The finish was disappointing, just like the Jets are setting up for a disappointing finish.
Yep,
But
that's right.
generally speaking, if you're a Jets fan, you need to look at the season, however it ends, and say, we took a step forward. Now, the concern would be that, as whoever said it, Woody Johnson won't look at it that way.
JLC.
Or JLC said that. Because Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, I think, have done a very good job with this roster and setting it up. They may have the rookie of the year on both sides of the football. Like, you can't be that mad about a season that's around 500 with promising young players.
If you're an optimistic Jet, and remember, they were dealing with a bunch of injuries on the offensive line, which is half the reason why Zach Wilson only had 0.3 seconds to throw tonight. It's not completely his fault because the line did do a bad job. But if you're an optimistic Jets fan, you say to yourself, all right, we overachieved this season. We are a quarterback away, but then you have to trust the team to make the correct decision at quarterback in the offseason, whether that's moving on from Zach Wilson, whether that's deciding that you're developing
Tom Brady.
Bring in somebody else.
Breech, how many optimistic Jets fans do you know?
There's 3 on Earth.
There's only 3 alive, yeah. So, and I don't know any of them.
Okay. Just wanted to confirm that.
Joe Namath?
I think like Dan Hansis and his dad are like 2 of the only 3.
Hansis, Mr. Hansis, and Joe Namath.
Mr. Namath.
So all right, let's take a quick break, then we'll come back and hash out some more playoff picture items related to not the Jets, but maybe the Jaguars. Next. Do we feel like we've sufficiently covered the Zach Wilson situation?
Well, is he going to start another game?
Well, I mean, my over hit.
Is he going to start another game?
I don't know how you could trot him back out there.
Breech doesn't want to put him out there based on his write him off.
You cannot put him back out there.
I agree with that. I think that's right. And I think what you do is I don't think you can move him this offseason unless for a 7th round pick, if we're being honest. I think what you do is you go through
you call David Tepper and be like, hey, buddy.
You go through spring ball, you go through training camp and see where he's at. And if he's dog crap in training camp, you might have to cut him. If he's better, you roll him out there and you go with it.
That is so. I mean, when is the last time? Has there ever been under the new CBA where you have the low cost rookie contracts where a top 5 quarterback was cut by his team, not traded, cut? I mean, you get a 7th round pick for him instead of cutting him because he's so cheap. But I'm just thinking of like after 2 years,
Josh Rosen got traded for a 7th round pick to Miami, and then he
was
cut.
10.
They traded up for him to 10 to get him.
Oof, Sean Ryder in the chat. The Jets were back.
Nice.
This is a funeral for Wilson's career.
I mean, here's the thing: you can keep him around just so you don't have to be a footnote. But if he plays in the spring and he plays in training camp like he's played this season, you got some tough decisions to make. And again, I mean, look, Spielman said you put him out there for 3 years, so maybe you give him another chance and maybe let him go the first month of the season and see how it goes. Maybe it gets better. Fingers crossed. But you got to have a backup plan. I don't know.
And you know what happened the last time the Jets decided, hey, let's give this guy a 3rd year? Sam Darnold. You know how that went?
They missed Sam Darnold is the crazy part.
I mean, maybe just no.
They rolled Darnold out in 2020 in his 3rd year instead of saying, you know what, we're done with them. They go 2-14 and then miss out on the first pick because they've won 2 games they probably shouldn't have won.
Is that what happened?
And Darnold won both those games.
That's when they missed out on Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, in 2020.
And Darnold cost them Trevor Lawrence? Sam Darnold is basically Santa Claus but the only thing it is big red like satchel is sack. It sounded. Thank you, Wilson.
So he clearly hates Santa Claus.
Yes,
Wilson.
He's going to middle school.
Darnold won 2 games in his final year with the Jets in 2020, and those 2 games are why the Jets didn't get the number 1 overall pick.
And
by the way, before we
deeply, sadly ironic.
He's coming to town. Santa! Oh my God! Santa here? I know him.
What's up, Big Perm and Big Worm? Quickly before we move on, a little prop for Brinson here. I did some research, as they call it, in the Ivory Towers.
Research.
So I went back and looked at all the second-year quarterbacks that were taken in the first round. We'll exclude Trey Lance because he's been injured for most of the season. Trevor Lawrence leads that group in games started. He's now at 32 in yards, which is over 7,100 now.
What was the date? The date you started on?
What?
Like second-year quarterback since when?
No, just the year.
The entire that class. Gotcha.
Yeah, they're first-round picks. We're excluding Trey Lance. So he's number 1 in that group in game started at 32, in passing yards, which is over 7,100 now, and touchdowns. It was 36 before tonight. I don't know if he threw any tonight. Also interceptions. He didn't have any tonight. Zach Wilson, meanwhile, is last in completion percentage, last in touchdowns among this group, last in QB rating among this group, and the leader in this group with sacks, and he's only played in 22 games. So, look, if he were on the Jaguars...
one rushing touchdown, no passing touchdowns, no interceptions for Lawrence tonight, by the way.
Okay, if he were on the Jaguars, maybe things are different for Zach Wilson, but when you watch him play, he makes the sort of mistakes that you feel like he doesn't get it. And maybe that changes with experience. I don't know, but Trevor Lawrence, something's clicked. And as Brinson would tell you, not having Urban Meyer in your headset probably had a lot to do with that. So it's not like Michael throws a bad coach. I think Zach Wilson has a lot to sort of make up for.
No, I mean, I think, look, I don't think that the situations in New York and Jacksonville are all that dissimilar. You know, you look at Garrett Wilson Evan Ingram is a cast off from the Giants, former first-round pick. Christian Kirk is a very nice signing in free agency, but let's not act like he's an elite number 1.
Got
Marvin Jones and Zay Jones have been very good players, but we're not talking about elite talents. I mean, you had Breece Hall, or is it Breece Hall? What do people say? Breece Hall, yeah.
Breece.
I swear people say Breece sometimes. It freaks me out. You got Garrett Wilson, who is clearly
Breece Hall's injured, by the way.
I know, but you had him early in the year. Now you have Zonovan Knight. I'm not going to act like Zonovan Knight. He was an undrafted free agent. You have Garrett Wilson. You have Michael Carter, who was I think a 3rd-round pick. He was taken right next to 4th-round pick, taken right near. They also have the other Michael Carter from Duke, who's the quarterback. Elijah Moore, 2nd-round pick. You have multiple first or 2nd-round picks that you addressed on the offensive line on both squads. So I'm just saying it's a comparable situation. Good coaching staffs. Trevor Lawrence is miles better than Zach Wilson. And Zach Wilson has quotes where he's like, I get out of the pocket and I just sort of get bored and feel like I've got to throw something. He threw his defense under the bus. I mean, it's problematic.
If Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence switch teams, what's the final score of this game?
19-3 Jets.
Well, the funny thing is, it was
27-3.
The Jaguars are 6-8, and the Jets are 7-7 to come into this game. So it's not like Billy notes. I think this is Billy making this note. Zach Wilson, after the game, on the boos that he heard from the crowd, said, "quote We have a very passionate fan base, and they are here to watch us score touchdowns, and we are not scoring any touchdowns. Of course, they are going to boo." I'm assuming is what the rest of that quote is. And I'm just channeling my Russ Wilson as I read this, because this feels like Russ Wilson trying to explain to Broncos country why things are going sideways.
But it is better than him. Again, I'm not defending Zach Wilson. Just maybe it's a silver lining that he's not responding. Like Zach Wilson several weeks ago, maybe he's like, I thought that was insane that those jerks were booing me.
Well, he's never been like that. He's always been sort of deadpan in his response. Yeah. He's never been angry. It feels like he has at times he's not emotional enough, but that's a those are just starting to read the tea leaves or whatever. But yeah, All right, let's move on because the Jets are not playing well. They're going to have to hope that Mike White and his every single rib that he had broken is magically healed. I can't imagine they roll with Strevler for a full game. Maybe they do.
They have to go Strevler over.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Maybe they do like what Joe Flacco did in Lamar's first year, and you have some combination of those two if Mike White can't go. But I don't think
with Joe Flacco there, no less.
That's why I said that. Yes, Joe Flacco and then Lamar.
They were chanting, "We want Flacco in the Meadowlands tonight." He's 37 years old. Like
we all saw Zach Wilson play.
He's almost as old as your oldest son. The Jets down to 8% chance to make the playoffs.
I feel like is that high or low, Breech?
I mean,
holy crap.
It feels high, but when you look at what has to happen, it's not that much. The most unrealistic part of them making the playoffs is them winning their final 2 games, which are both on the road, one at Seattle, one at Miami, because you have to win both those games to get in. And I don't think
you're going to make a case that the Dolphins are going to be sitting people because that's their only chance to win that game.
Dolphins will not be sitting people.
Dolphins will be fighting for their lives.
So 8% sounds. It might as well be 80%.
I mean, they were 7-6 and just lost to the Lions and Jaguars at home.
Both better teams, by the way.
Better teams than anyone expected. But if you told any Jets fan before the season you're 7-6, the Lions and the Jaguars are coming to town. If you win one, you're in really good shape for the playoffs. They would be like, we're going to win both and we're getting in. And they lost both in horrific fashion. I hope they don't trot out Mike White in unnecessary fashion for that, because you don't want to see somebody get unnecessarily hurt. They're toast. You got to salvage the season. What do you think? The Jaguars playoff pursuit?
Well, real quick on the Jets, I think they'll decide what they're going to do in Week 17 based on what happens this weekend. Because if the Dolphins and Patriots both lose, then the Jets are very much alive. And obviously, the Patriots play the Bengals, and then the Dolphins play the Packers. And obviously, the Dolphins are favored in that game. But Aaron Rodgers hell bent on getting to the playoffs after the crappy start to the season. Who knows what happens there?
Hey, Breech, let me ask you a quick question. You mentioned I thought that was a meme. I didn't know that actually the Bengals are actually playing the Patriots after what happened in the Raiders game. What happened after the Chiefs lost years ago when they were talking benching Tom Brady and Belichick said we're on to Cincinnati? What did Cincinnati do in that game? Do you remember?
Cincinnati lost by a lot. You're talking about the one
like 75 points. It was really bad.
I wonder if do you think that's a repeat performance?
Are you talking about the we're on to Cincinnati game?
Yeah, they were on the Cincinnati game.
Okay, that's funny you brought that up because yes, the Bengals got smoked in that game.
Are you any fear
43 to 17? No, because this is not comparable. What this is comparable to is when the Patriots lost on the Miami Miracle. And then you know what they did the next week because they didn't mentally get over that shocking loss is they went out and lost as a 4-point favorite to your Pittsburgh Steelers, Wilson. Way more comparable to that.
Okay, good. That just popped into my head, and I didn't want to put any extra fear in your heart ahead of Santa Claus coming, but I thought I should ask.
Wait, what year was the?
We're on to Cincinnati. Was 2014.
Okay, the YouTube lied to me. They won the freaking Super Bowl, and we're on to Cincinnati year. I mean,
that's because they put the Chiefs game behind them. That people were saying bench Brady, he's done, he's washed up, and then they beat the Bengals 43-17 and go on and win the Super Bowl.
The next time, that game, the Chiefs game was September 29th. The next in 2014, the next time the Patriots lost was December 7th. Like they're about to ripper.
They're about to lose in 3 days, according to Breech.
I think the Bengals are going to. That was the Super Bowl.
Well, and long story short, to circle back to the Jets. So if the Dolphins and Patriots both lose, they play each other in Week 17. So that's why the Jets would still very much be alive because then one of those teams is going to suffer 2 losses in the next 2 weeks if they both lose in Week 16. And so you're thinking, do I bring out Mike White and his broken ribs to try and salvage the season and get in the playoffs? So it will be interesting to see what happens with them, even though this feels like this was a kill shot and they're not going to be able to get in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
a kill shot. It really was a kill shot.
We'll sort of look at the numbers to see what the Jets. So if the Patriots beat if both those teams lose and the Patriots beat the Dolphins in Week 17, the Jets are all the way up to 14% to make the playoffs.
You can do all the magic you want to do.
They're done. What do you think the Jaguars' current playoff odds are?
Our buddy Stephen O had 41% going into this game, so they're
55.
north
I'll
of
get
that.
Nope. Sorry.
He made a face, so it must be less than that. 51.
I'd say like it's a nice number.
Okay, what is it? I said 51.
69%.
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
68% to win the division. They can technically sneak in
Wow.
What do you mean sneak in?
I think it's a wild card.
Oh, they're going to win the division. I mean,
That's crazy to think, though, at 68% that because let's say the Titans win Saturday,
Sure.
you're a full game. I mean, they're playing the Texans. So it doesn't mean they're going to win. They might not. But if they do,
if the Titans win, it drops into 66%.
that's what I'm saying is that it's still a high percentage, even though they're one game back with 2 games to play.
And I'm using 538 for this just because it updates really quickly. But I would assume that their ELO rating accounts for Malik Willis playing the rest of the season.
So, Breech, you mentioned the last time we spoke, I believe, that you had the Chargers and Miami getting in at 6 and 7. Do you want to change anything? Do you want to change the 4 seed where Tennessee currently sits and swap them out? You want to
Thank
change
you for offering, Ryan. I would like to change my 4 seed. I'm here in Nashville. My house is going to get egged. That's why I've been so reluctant to switch my pick, but I'm going to do it. I'm on
the bandwagon, baby.
I'm on the Jacksonville bandwagon. The Titan one that Tannehill was driving in, it careened off a cliff. It's over. It's done. I have a tough time seeing them doing anything.
What about the 5, 6, 7? Anything change there?
No, I still think it's Ravens, Chargers, Dolphins.
I think I agree with you.
Baltimore's definitely making the playoffs, right?
They just need to, because they're 9-5. They win one more game. They're in a good spot.
No Lamar this week, but I mean, there's too many hurdles the teams below them have to clear.
Right. You beat the Falcons. You're not officially in, but you're almost certainly in with 10 wins.
Then the only other thing to sort out is 1, 2, 3. And I think old 3 might be making a move towards 1 and 2.
Buddy, man. I tell you what, I've done some informal polling of MVP voters.
Oh, man.
No, I think that right now, I was actually really surprised by this, that Mahomes is the clear favorite. Like, I think what I'm telling you is that I thought that the numbers in Vegas were way off and that it should be closer to like a pick 'em with Hurts and Mahomes. I think that the Vegas numbers are actually correct now. But having said that, over the next 3 weeks, I think there is a real chance that either Joe Burrow or Josh Allen could just go off. And of course, they play Monday night, week 17, right?
Yep.
The winner of that game, and the Chiefs have these 3 kind of man games, like they have the Seahawks and Broncos and Raiders. They're all off the grid in terms of publicity. Whereas Joe Burrow is going to be on. A lot of people are going to see Burrow against the Patriots, and a lot of people are going to see him against the Bills. I think Burrow is live as hell to win this MVP award.
Boom!
I don't disagree.
Jalen Hurts, it's an out of context boo. If Jalen Hurts plays again and the Eagles finish 15-2 or 16-1, then
Jalen Hurts is probably going to play again.
If Minshew wins against the Cowboys, why play him?
You know what I want to bring up real quick?
You clinch everything. Why would you play him?
What do you want to bring up, Breech?
Our Super Bowl draft.
Oh.
Seems like a good time because Brinson has Jacksonville. Probably feeling very good about that. Brinson's team is the Ravens, Eagles, Colts, Saints, and Jags.
Oh, Colts. God, why did I take this in the Bengals?
Wilson, your team is the Chiefs, Rams. Broncos, Vikings, and Dolphins.
Oh.
Yeah, he quit laughing right quick there.
Come on. Rams and Broncos is objectively funny.
Wilson got the late round steals.
Oh.
You got the steals. My team is the Packers.
I'm not laughing at that. I'd love a Packers Super Bowl win.
Chargers, the Bengals, Cowboys, Steelers.
So your best team is
but the only
Eagles.
and read the who's the Cody? Who's the
our listener?
Yeah.
Is it C-Rad?
C-Rad, yes, thank you. What does C-Rad have?
See, he has the Bills. Oh, sorry.
Buccaneers, 49ers, Cardinals, Raiders.
So here's the thing. I mean, Breech, I would say your team is the weakest from front to back. But
Nice
here's
shot, Billy.
you only need one team to win. So it's not a accumulation of most wins versus losses. So
Good screen grab the fact that Ryan Wilson knows where this document is for future phone calls.
what?
Nothing. The
I mean, it's looking like we're all going to get 3 of our 5 teams in, so I'm not going to say that mine's weak. I'm fine.
do we remember what day what was it? It wasn't
It was before it was before the season started.
Last year was in the middle of the season.
Yeah, that's
This
right.
year was before the
It
season.
just really is indicative of like the NFL as a whole in terms of I took the Ravens and the Eagles at 4 and 5 because those were my Super Bowl teams. And I actually wanted to take the Rams and I want to take maybe the 49ers and somebody else. Maybe the Bengals just to spite Breech, but it like these teams at the bottom, the Jaguars, the Dolphins, the Vikings, the Cowboys.
Well, those are all speculative because we thought they were going to stink.
Right. And the Packers and the Rams were locks to go to the playoffs.
Yeah, those teams at the bottom, a lot had to happen in the right direction for them to be competitive, and those things happened. And then teams like the Packers and the Rams, those things have gone sideways. Or in your case, the Colts, who were supposed to win the division according to all of us.
That's pathetic.
I'd say C-Rad here has the best chance of getting both his teams in the Super Bowl with Bills 49ers.
If that happens, then you have to pay yourself, though. That's the rule.
Sorry,
Bills 49ers is probably the best look right now. Who's the next best?
That's what C-Rad
I
has.
think Wilson's Chiefs plus Chiefs and Vikings is not.
Yeah, that ain't come on now.
I love
Dude, the NFC is wide open, man.
Even I know that.
The Bengals went to the Super Bowl last year. You think the
Bengals are way big. Last year's Bengals team would.
I love having an Eagles fan controlling the booze.
That's insane.
NFC is not wide.
I've got the Eagles, Billy. Boo the rest of the people, man.
Last year's Bengals team would beat the Vikings 100-0 last year and this year.
Oh man, I might have to bet the Eagles. What is Eagles Jaguars to Super Bowl matchup at Caesars? Let's see. I have to bet that. Eagles.
I love it.
Eagles Jaguars. The Doug Peterson. Oh my God, a Doug Peterson revenge game. I have to bet this.
I love it.
God, give it to me. Nope. It's 200.
I love it.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, Jags Eagles?
Jags Eagles 201. What do you think?
Do it, Brinson. Put the money down right now.
See, I can find a better number than that.
Yeah, all our commenters think C-Rad was last year. That's why I didn't make the note of the
Oh,
listeners.
it's Caleb. It's Caleb this year. Sorry.
That's Caleb. Yeah, you're right. Caleb.
With too many C's.
Sorry.
C's.
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah,
next
you know
year.
the problem
no
here
one
is
will see.
a very uncaring Debo who left us this list and just put listener without any personalization and asked us 16 weeks later to figure out who it was. No wonder nobody can get their hats.
I had it written down and I was keeping track for a while, but so yeah, it's Caleb.
So did I tell you I bet the Lions Jaguars playoff matchup or Super Bowl matchup?
Yeah.
Well, good luck to you on that one.
Tell them to bring me my money. It's like an outrageous.
Well, I mean, Breech has Dallas as well, and Cincinnati, and the
I think
Chargers.
Dallas is dead.
I
So-
will tell you something that's crazy though, is that of all the teams currently in a spot in the playoffs, the only ones we didn't draft were the Titans, which we talked about at the end, how we didn't feel comfortable with them, and that is not looking too crazy now. And then the Giants and Commanders, which I still don't think either of those teams are going to win Super Bowl. So,
And you could actually argue that Brinson's team overall is the weakest. The Ravens are sort of reeling. They have the Eagles, obviously, is a big one. Oh boy, the Saints and the Jaguars are still on the outside looking in, and they're probably the second best team. Well, no, they're the third best team. The Ravens are second.
Brinson's top 2 teams don't have healthy quarterbacks right now.
Right? Yeah, that's odd. That's
What,
right.
you think the Eagles are dead?
No, but
I mean, as long as they're not playing with us with this
I'm
Jalen.
putting teams in italics that we think are dead.
they're not dead. Gardner Minshew's going to lead him to the Super Bowl.
Eagles are fine, man.
He's going to be printing his Nick Foles and win a Super Bowl, and then Jalen Hurts going to get cut and end up on the Colts.
So, I mean, out of the teams that we drafted, only 6 of the 20 teams in week 16 are like completely dead.
Well,
And they're not technically eliminated. So, I mean, but,
I reverse psychology Wilson and taking the Broncos.
yeah, the Rams,
I
the
got tricks with
Broncos,
somebody.
the Packers are they're dead. I mean, let's be real. They're not winning the Super Bowl. The Saints, The
Colts
Colts.
and Saints, I'm still so mad about that.
And I mean, I'll leave Tampa Bay for Caleb, but I know the truth. The Cardinals, and I'm assuming you guys are okay with the Raiders being dead too, and Pittsburgh.
I think all those teams are dead. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
And
8
then
teams.
let's see.
Yeah,
Close
so
playoff-
we all have 2 dead teams and 3 teams that could make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I was putting the Niners clinch. Bengals just clinched.
So,
Niners won the division. Duh.
yeah, you don't have to go through that now. I'm sure no
I'm
one
just
wants.
doing it right now.
Someone
Nothing else to
listening
do.
is-
We'll talk about it at the end of the season. I just wanted to bring it up real quick since it was the game was not that entertaining.
Well, yeah, we already somehow squeezed 45 minutes out of it. Nothing like this
Perfect.
little wonderful cup of lemonade that we somehow managed to make. All right, that's it. Jaguars win. How much closer?
Bengals win.
Bengals win.
Bengals win.
Ryan Wilson wins because he.
Subscribe to With the First Pick podcast wherever you get your podcast. Thank
With
you.
the First Pick podcast. If you prefer to watch us on YouTube, just kick it here because we show those episodes.
Zach Wilson's fate in New York is sealed.
Yeah.
That was the pre-podcast joke.
Still terrible.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks.
Boy, it was a lot funnier before the podcast. All right, that'll do it for us. For Breech, for Wilson, I'm Brinson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
See you guys
Ho,
on
ho, ho.
Christmas night. Bye.